our technology talks with the experts around Boise State. Today we have Leif Nelson from Academic Technologies.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so today we're talking about clickers, and so thanks for anybody that's participating remotely here. You can't see, but this room is packed right now, so hopefully Jeff doesn't do a pan here. But, we're talking about clickers at Boise State University, and this is presented by the Student Response Task Force. So I'll talk a little bit about clickers, and I'll talk about the task force and why we created it. But I just wanted to quickly thank some people that helped put this together. I want to thank Jeff Oliver for coordinating this event, Mark Dory, who also helped kind of kick things off for this Live at the Zone event. And then the members of the Student Response Task Force Committee include Greg Candenberg, Riley Caldwell O'Keefe, Shelton Woods, David Lentz, Patrick Lowenthal, Jason Spear, and Jacob Button, who is Jason's replacement as the Turning Technologies intern, Kevin Wilson, and Mark Dory. So thanks to the task force and to Jeff for putting this on. So clickers, this could be considered a clicker. This is what you use to advance slides. But what we call clickers in a classroom setting is often this thing. This is what we call a student response device, or a classroom response device, or clicker is kind of the nickname for it. So my title, as Jeff and I kind of teamed up on spitting out, is the Coordinator of Instructional and Assessment Platforms here at Boise State in Academic Technologies. And I consider clickers to be both an instructional and an assessment tool. So it's instructional because it helps get engagement and participation in your class. It's an assessment tool as well. I worked with a faculty member once who said that using clickers is kind of like the dashboard in his car, that it gives him a sense of how he's doing as an instructor when he's presenting topics. And so the clicker response is like his fuel gauge, so he knows if he needs to cover topics in more depth and things like that. So it's instructional and it's an assessment tool. I also think that there's a continuum of value that clickers afford you in a classroom experience. So at the base level, it's an attendance tool. But in most cases, you should use it more than for just attendance. So as we go up the pyramid, you can use it for attention, for engagement. You can get a variety of perceptions from your class if you do like a survey question. It can be used to recall facts. And as we're going up the pyramid, now you can look at things that are maybe muddy points and misconceptions. So you're moving from just an engagement and question and answer tool. Now you're using it almost for a formative assessment tool. You're seeing if students need more clarification on certain subjects that you can spend more time talking about. You can use it for collaboration. You can bring students up into teams or groups and then have them discuss with each other. And you can use it ultimately for critical thinking. You can ask questions that may have controversial answers or more than one acceptable answer, and then you can use that as a launch pad for discussion. So as you move up the continuum of value, you can use it, and everything you do at the top also satisfies most of the things at the bottom. That's the nice thing, is that if you're using clickers for something more advanced like critical thinking and collaboration, you're also getting that attendance data that's just kind of built into the fact that you're using clickers at all, that it reports that data. So let's practice. We've got some clickers here. Unfortunately, you can't participate if you're watching remotely, but this is what a clicker slide might look like. And the students in your class or the participants in your session would have the device in hand, and then they would press the number that corresponds with their answer. So this is kind of an existential question here. Are you here? If you wanted to use this to take attendance, you could. Obviously, there's only one answer choice, and so they would put in their answer, it would lock in the vote, and you can see, maybe you can see on the screen in the top right, there's this little toolbar kind of ribbon that's giving us some information on the slide. So we've got 5 responses. We know that polling is open, so all I do is hit next, and then it closes polling and it reports my answer. So everybody, 100% of the participants said yes, they are here. Here's another one that Turning Point, which is the vendor that we use, has these built-in what they call icebreaker slides. And so these are useful if you're maybe using clickers for the first time, you want to get the class kind of used to it, work out some of the bugs, then you would ask one of these icebreaker slides. This is just an analogy question. Ninjutsu is to Japan as Kung Fu is to blank. And you've got 4 choices here, and so then the students would just kind of say, I think it's, well, I'm not going to say the answer, I'm just going to put it in. So we've got 6 responses, then I go to next, and everybody got it right, it's China, okay? And I actually have a little tool here that you can add in as you're developing your PowerPoint presentation. That smiley face is a correct answer indicator, and that's an object that you can insert in your PowerPoint tool. So this is the basic makeup of a clicker slide, and as you can see, it's a PowerPoint question, but people are all responding, so instead of just saying, raise your hand if you think this, now everybody gets to do it kind of on their own. We get to collect all that data. We get to present or project that data back to the students in the form of a bar graph, and so that could be useful in a lot of different ways. And we can also identify what the correct answer is. So here's another one. It's a multiple choice. What's your favorite color? So as you can tell, there are different types of questions you can ask. You can ask questions that maybe have a single correct answer, or you can use it for more opinion poll kind of things, and they're both useful in different types of instructional applications. So we've got 5 responses. Okay, so green, more green than blue. If you wanted to do a team-based slide, you could have your participants choose what team they want to be on, and then it's going to record the scores broken out into the teams that students are on, and then it'll give you your aggregate on a later slide if you wanted to do that. So, number 3, Greg and I are from the Midwest, so I had to include the Packers here. But we've got a couple Idaho teams here as well. So it looks like some people have chosen their teams, so we can go on. All right, Packers there, some Broncos. So now any slides after that team slide is going to collect the data based on what teams the students decided to join. Okay, so here's one. How many students use clickers at Boise State in fall 2012? So give me a moment to guess. All right, so most of you are correct. The answer is actually 3. Oops. The answer is actually 3. Almost 8,000 students use clickers at Boise State in fall 2012. That's a pretty significant number. Here's a true or false question. You can tell there are different question types, multiple choice, true, false, things like that. Let's see how you did. Okay, the answer is actually true. You can export data from your clicker presentation directly to Blackboard. There's a button built into the software called integration. As long as you have everything set up correctly, you just click the button and your scores get magically whisked into your Blackboard Grade Center. There's another correct answer indicator. Green check mark means that that's the correct answer. Okay, so how do we do? Packers win by a narrow margin. Okay, so if you're a faculty member and you want to use clickers for the first time, you want to maybe get some more information about it before committing, there are certain steps that you should take. The first thing that we recommend in academic technologies is to meet with one of our instructional design consultants, or IDCs. And we have a list on our website that says what instructional design consultant is assigned to what department. So if you go to at.boisestate.edu, you can look up your department and find who you should contact, and it's got all the contact information. Who your instructional designer in academic technologies would be. Give them a call, shoot them an email, and they'll set up a consultation where they can talk about clickers and how it might fit in your specific, whether it'll fit your needs, and then how you can incorporate it in the class. The next step is to contact the bookstore. Let's say that you're committed to doing this clicker thing, and you want to make sure that there are enough clickers at the bookstore for your students to purchase to use the following semester. So you contact the bookstore at the time of the book orders that you place. And then it's a good idea to plan, to develop your slides well in advance. I mean, this is not something that I would say is easily just kind of introduced at the last second. This is something that will take some planning. You're going to want to consider the types of questions that you'll ask and how you'll incorporate it into your class time. And then it's also valuable, I think, to understand the student perspective. So what does a student have to do to register their device? What are all the different kind of working parts in terms of how students would use it in the class? and that'll help just troubleshoot basic issues, so it doesn't have to, become a problem later on. So now I'm going to turn it over to Greg Cannonberg from our bookstore. He's going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that they're doing in relation to clickers.
As Leif had mentioned, if you're interested in using a clicker in your class, what you're going to want to do is get a hold of me at the bookstore. I'm the one that actually orders them through Turning Technologies. And those time frames, as you mentioned, are actually, we're only 3 weeks away from the one for spring. That's October 15th. The earlier the better. However, we can take requests to add those to your courses after that, but always the earlier the better. That way I get a better idea of what I need to procure. Gives me the time to do that, especially if I have plenty of time before buyback. I'll be able to buy those clickers back from the students, and then we can sell them as used, which is obviously a savings for the students as well. The order process is pretty simple. I think most faculty, if there are any of you watching, you're already familiar with our online form, requisition form. It's on our website for the bookstore, BoiseStateBooks.com. Go to faculty resources, and then under there's a link that'll take you right to the form. Just basically type in you want to use clickers for your course. You've also got to fill out your course information there. Submit, hit the submit button. It's that simple. I get the order, and from there I just keep adding it to all the other courses that are submitting orders for clickers, and then take a look at how we're going to be able to purchase that. And as I said, hopefully we can get most of them, if not all of them, especially this year, through our buyback process. Rentals. One of the things that we know is kind of difficult to swallow at times with clickers is the price. In the last 2 semesters at the bookstore, we've had an excessive amount of stock on hand, all of which was the new stock when they switched over about, I think it was about 2 semesters ago, to the newest model of clicker. We're at a point now, however, at the bookstore where we're low enough on that stock where, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we would be looking to buy most of what we need for next semester back from the students. So at a minimum, we're pretty much looking at a guaranteed buyback for clickers that are out there right now being used. But we're also looking very closely into the possibility of renting clickers. Hopefully that would actually save even more money over the term of the use of a clicker. From what I see coming back and what I've experienced in sales of them and returns of them, usually they're used anywhere between 2 and 3 semesters worth. Obviously that depends on what the student is using and what courses they're taking going forward, but if we can put that together, I could see that saving even beyond a buyback. Buyback will be 50% of the retail price of the clicker, but rental will be as low as 1/3 of what that price would be per semester. So we're in the final stages of putting the rental program together for spring. That's our goal, is to have it ready for spring. And some of you also may be aware that in the last couple semesters we tried something at the bookstore in working with Turning Technologies that's responseware. For lack of a better word, I'll call them cards that you buy that you can actually get a download to your smartphone and end up using a smartphone instead of a clicker in the class. There have been some issues with that in the past. We've actually stopped putting that out there right now. I'll let Sheldon maybe address a little bit of the issues he's bumped into, but obviously the use of a smartphone in the class sometimes doesn't always work for what you're teaching or what you're trying to get accomplished. And also some of the reception at times. You need to have good clarity and a good provider to make sure the reception is working, otherwise your device then isn't working in class. So we're really, at this point in time, looking to stay mainly with the clickers because that's what's going to work best for both the students and the instructors. That's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. So what do you do if you need help? And this is from both the student's perspective and also if you're a faculty member. Who do you contact? The first line of defense is usually the help desk, and so we've got the phone number here. It's if you're on campus, it's extension 64357, and that also spells 6HELP. So if you are, let's say you're in your classroom and there's a problem and you need to just call somebody quickly, that's probably a good number to call. You can also drop by any one of the zone locations, especially if you're a student and let's say that your clicker battery is dead or you're having some device malfunctioning problems. Go to the zone and they should be able to help you with that. Same for faculty, in-person help is certainly available and welcome. If you're a faculty member and you want to talk more about strategy and how you might incorporate clickers in your classroom, or if you have more sophisticated questions about the software, then an instructional design consultant might be a good option. And again, that's through Academic Technologies. You can look up the website that says who your consultant is for your department. We have contact information there. Also got the website listed on this slide. We have self-help resources as well, so we have documentation. A lot of it is produced by us, but we also link to some other resources through the vendor, Turning Technologies, and we have links to some other campuses that have put together some pretty useful resources, videos, and documentation, things like that. So lots of good resources out there. And again, that's at at.boisestate.edu/clickers. And just a general strategy is, as a faculty member or as a staff member, just communicating to the student what clickers are, why they're being used, how they're being used, some of the registration processes, we think is helpful to maybe mitigate problems that might become larger later on. So communication is just an overall good strategy in general. So we created the Student Response Task Force. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. So I started in late March, and I had begun hearing some talk about clickers, that there were some issues around it, and that that it might be good to just kind of coordinate a cross-functional team from around campus and begin identifying what's going on with clickers at Boise State and what can we do to make it better. So again, I mentioned at the beginning that the members, and here they're listed, Greg Cannonberg from the Bookstore, Riley Caldwell O'Keefe, who teaches foundational studies courses, Shelton Woods from the Social Science and Public Affairs Department, David Lentz from the Office of Information Technology, Patrick Lowenthal from Education Technology, Jason Spear was our intern from Turning Technologies, and now we have Jacob Button, who is serving in that role. I'm from Academic Technologies, as is Kevin Wilson, and Mark Dory from the Office of Information Technology. So we had good representation. We had the tech folks, we had the academic side, we had the bookstore, so we felt that a lot of the important stakeholders were represented on this group. So the charge that we came up with is listed here. It was to evaluate the existing landscape of classroom response systems at Boise State University. So again, we wanted to kind of get a handle on what was going on now before making any decisions about what to do next. So then we wanted to identify, in this existing landscape, what are the problems and can we come up with recommended solutions for them. We wanted to identify and spotlight successful uses of classroom response systems. We wanted to establish a criteria for evaluating classroom response solutions, which could include not only clickers, but also web-based tools or any new products that might come along down the road. So these are kind of the high-level, overarching, ideas. And so then we had some specific goals that we established as well, and that was to develop a long-term plan for classroom response solutions, develop short vignettes or handouts. I don't want to call it promotional material, but just really simple, easy to access content about the value of clickers that we could distribute to faculty. And we wanted to improve support and training resources. So the triggers, going back to why this group was formed and why we felt that these were things that a committee should address, go back to there were anecdotal reports of problems. We heard that students were saying that maybe the cost was too high, or that there were different devices that didn't always work in different classrooms. And so we wanted to find out if there was any real merit to what we were hearing anecdotally. And so to comprehensively really identify what the real problems were and if we could come up with solutions for them. There are also new web-based tools. I mean, technology is rapidly evolving all the time. And so with a lot of attention to mobile devices and mobile initiatives, we're seeing that there are some new companies that have mobile solutions that that kind of compete in the same space as clickers, that they have classroom response type platforms. And so we wanted to make sure that we had a good handle on what the impact of that might be and what our response as an institution might be to some of those new and emerging tools that were approaching us. And just overall, there was a desire to provide the best tools and services to the campus. So some of the problems, I mentioned that we were hearing anecdotal reports, and so we had some pretty lengthy discussions about what the actual problems might be and how we could potentially resolve them. Cost to students was one that was brought up by a few people on a few occasions. And so working with Greg, we explored the possibility of having a rental program in the bookstore. And one thing that they will be implementing, as Greg mentioned this fall, is a buyback for all clicker devices. There were questions about who owns this thing. That obviously a lot of different departments need to be involved. Like I mentioned, we've got the Office of Information Technology, Academic Technologies, academics and faculty members. But is there really like a main kind of coordination on campus? And so looking at my business card that said Coordinator of Instructional and Assessment Platforms, and getting back to that earlier slide where clickers are both an instructional assessment platform, I kind of raised my hand and said that I can take the lead. And really the task force was one of the ways that we had kind of shared buy-in and shared ownership of this. One of the questions that was raised as well is that the value isn't articulated well enough to students. And this was actually raised by the student that was on our committee, so that was kind of an important perspective. And so we agreed that just better communication from faculty members, from instructional design consultants, and really anybody that touches clickers at any level, better communication to students about not only how to use clickers, but why they add value to the classroom experience was something that we felt was a potential way to address that. Another thing that we noticed, and anytime there's a technology, we don't really take the approach that it should be used just because it's there, but rather it should be used because it's useful. So low usage is something that we'll have to think about in kind of nuanced terms, but part of it could be lack of awareness. So we have 40-some faculty members using clickers on any given semester, and that's out of the close to 1,000 faculty members that we have here. So it's a very low percentage. And so if we really believe that this thing adds value, then maybe we should be better about communicating that to our faculty to increase adoption where it provides benefit to their instruction. And there were some questions about training and support that it could be improved, and so we've been coordinating better between academic technologies and OIT, working with the help desk and with customer care in trying to increase just training efforts. And we also engaged with Turning Technologies to provide some training and support as well. So, good segue. Vendor involvement, like I said, we worked with Turning Technologies. We engaged with a woman whose title was Implementation Specialist. And so she worked very closely with us to provide training for all academic technology staff, for the help desk staff. She gave us some resources, some suggestions on what we can do differently. And we also worked with some of our representatives, our technical and sales representatives from Turning Technologies, that they actually came on campus a couple times and just helped us sort of hash through some of the issues that we were having and what we could do to improve them. So that was very useful. And they created and filled a new internship position. And that's a valuable role that we're still we're working out how that can really serve our campus in positive ways as we move forward with clickers. The other thing that I mentioned is that Turning Point might not always be here. They might not be our clicker of choice. There might be new products that we want to adopt alongside clickers because they fill a particular need. We have a lot of web-based tools. We have a lot of startups. And they're approaching us all the time. And so we wanted to have a criteria that really sets, what we think is important in any new product that we would be adopting for Boise State. So we went through an exercise identifying the must-have features and then ranking them based on how important they are, whether they're critical or maybe not so critical importance. And so the critical criteria that we came up with is that any kind of student response tool or product or system needs to integrate with both PowerPoint and our LMS. It needs to track student activity and point values associated to that. It needs to be easy to use. It needs to be both Mac and Windows compatible, and there needs to be some kind of way to toggle into like an anonymous mode, so we aren't necessarily tracking student names with their answers. And so these were kind of the top 5 that must be included in any kind of product or solution that we adopt. So we didn't solve all the world's problems as hard as we tried. There are still some outstanding issues. If you go back to the charge and the goals, some of those bullet points, I admit we didn't really tackle, and so I think that there is a need to keep either the existing group or this type of a group going, kind of on an ongoing basis, because continual quality improvement is one of the things that we need to focus on in any technology, especially when it changes so quickly. So a couple specific items that we could have probably done a little bit better is that we upgraded the software for Turning Point. The new version had some significant interface changes, and we could have done a better job of communicating that and having training sessions and things like that. Basically, our strategy was emails, and I think that there are probably other channels that we can reach out to faculty to make sure that everybody's aware of the changes and that they're prepared and not surprised on the first day of class. And so that's something that we'll work on for next time to improve upon. Kind of going along with that is better outreach to faculty. Communicating, like I said, the value of clickers and how it might be useful in their curriculum. And one of the ways that we're going to reach out to faculty to get a better sense of needs and preferences is we've got some surveys that we're working on. Patrick has developed some student and faculty surveys that we'll be deploying later this semester. So overall, we believe that clickers are useful and that they're valuable instructional tools, and we want to get that word out. We also think that ensuring success requires continual improvement and involvement from people like the members of the task force. So thanks for attending. Thanks for anybody that participated remotely.